Hello, this is Catherine Ann Hansard. In the last video, we looked at the demand side of the market. In this video, we're going to focus on the supply side. First, let's review some terms. Quantity supplied is the amount of a good sellers are willing and able to supply. When the price of a good rises, the quantity supplied of the good rises. When the price falls, the quantity supplied falls, other things being equal. In other words, a seller would supply more if the price goes up, because he would see it as an opportunity to make more profits. If the price falls, the seller would supply less. This is the law of supply. Similar to a demand schedule, a supply schedule is a table that shows the relationship between the price of a good and the quantity supplied. The supply schedule here shows the market supply for gasoline. You have the price per gallon and quantity supplied in millions of gallons. Now notice that as the price of gasoline increases, the quantity supplied increases, which is consistent with the law of supply. Supply can be represented with a supply schedule or supply curve. Let's plot and draw the supply curve. If the price of gasoline is $0, not surprisingly, quantity supplied is 0. If the price goes up to $1 a gallon, quantity supplied increases to 3 million gallons. Once we've connected all the points, we get this upward sloping curve, which is the supply curve. Like in the previous video, I want to point out that it is important to know the difference between supply and quantity supplied. Supply refers to the supply curve or supply schedule. And quantity supplied refers to the point on the supply curve or quantity in a supply schedule. Let's move on to supply curve shifters. Similar to the demand shifters, supply shifters are non-price related factors, things that determine the seller's supply for a good other than the good's price. Let's have a look at the first supply shifter. Number of sellers. An increase in the number of sellers increases the quantity supplied at each price, which shifts the supply curve to the right. Here's an example. Back in 2007, Apple was the first seller of smartphones. Now, supply curve for smartphones have greatly shifted to the right with more sellers from Samsung to Google. A second factor is input prices. Prices of inputs are negatively related to supply. That is, when input prices falls, supply increases. Example of input prices include wages, prices of raw materials, basically all the things that go into producing the good. If you think about it, a fall in input prices makes production more profitable at each output price. As a result, firms supply a larger quantity at each price, shifting the supply curve to the right. Technology can shift supply. A cost-saving technological improvement has the same effect as a fall in input prices. Acts of nature. A drought decreases the supply of agricultural products, which means that at any given price, a lower quantity will be supplied. Conversely, especially good weather can shift the supply curve to the right. For example, a severe drought in China can reduce the supply of soybeans, shifting the supply to the left. Expectations about the future. Events in the Middle East can lead to expectations of higher oil prices. Now, owners of Texas oil fields may want to reduce supply now to save some inventory to sell later at a higher price. Sellers may also adjust supply when their expectation of future prices change. This only applies if the goods are not perishable. Government policies through taxes and regulations can add additional costs to production, hence shifting the supply curve to the left. Government subsidies, on the other hand, is the opposite of tax and can reduce the cost of production, increasing the supply at every given price. For supply shifters, I have a word you can use to memorize these factors. First, let's list them. Expectations, acts of nature, technology, inputs, number of sellers, government policies. And that's eating. Let's apply the concepts we just learned to the laptops market. We're going to look at what happens to the laptop supply curve following each scenario. A, retailers cut the price of laptops. B, a technological advance allows laptops to be produced at a lower cost. And C, price of tablets falls. A, if retailers cut the price of laptops, the supply curve does not shift. Why? Because it is a change in the price. Remember, things that shift the supply curve are non-price factors. What will happen is that there will be a movement down the curve to a lower price and a lower quantity supplied. B, say there is an improvement in technology. Technology is listed as one of the shifters. Technological advancement can increase production and reduce costs, shifting the supply curve to the right. C, what happens to the supply of laptops if the price of tablets falls? Can you guess? This is a tricky question. Tablets are substitutes for laptops, and substitutes is a demand curve shifter, not a supply curve shifter. So it will shift the demand curve, not the supply curve. The supply curve will remain unchanged. I hope you find this video helpful. Thank you for watching.